I'm European, and when I was 16, I attended a Catholic high school in the States. It was all new to me, of course. There were so many things I had only seen in movies that amused me, some that weirded me out, some that annoyed me. I loved it though, and I always had a great spirit of adaptation. So within the first month I was there, I already had a great group of friends. It felt precisely like being in a movie sometimes, having lunch with the cool kids at the most popular table, lockers, football games, all new and exciting to me. Another new thing for me was having to change classes every hour. In the country where I'm from, you sit 5 hours in the same desk with the same people sitting in the same seats, while the professors alternate every hour. In fact, one of my favorite classes was English because it was the one my friends and peers attended the most. I was sitting next to this guy who, for privacy, I'll call Mark, who was very nice and friendly despite being a bit of an introvert. Everyone knew him anyway. The school was small, and among peers, we really hung out 100% despite the differences, and he was no exception, despite not being the most charismatic of the school. It amazed me that whenever I talked to him, he never looked me in the eye. He would always look around, or at the ground, often moving his eyes quickly. This fascinated me, and of course, didn't disturb me at all. I found it a way to combat shyness. No red flags. In short, a little month goes by since my arrival, and things were going very well. One morning, I sat next to Mark. He was my desk mate, and we talked as usual. I asked him if he could let me copy the last part of my homework that I had not been able to do during study hall, and he accepted very kindly. We continued to chat and say goodbye. The day goes on smoothly, and the next day, I noticed that Mark didn't come to school. A few days go by, and a rumor begins to circulate the hallways that poor Mark, on his way home, had found his mother dead. But that's terrible, I thought. Such a good kid doesn't deserve such a big trauma. No one does. 2 weeks pass. The rumors, of course, continue to circulate, and we hear the most absurd theories. The mother was with her head in the oven. She committed suicide. She was attacked, robbed, strangled. In short, a great series of things that do not give peace to the poor lady who left us. I was very annoyed by this attitude, where this thing was treated like any other gossip. So Mark went back to school one day. He was very sad. The gossip ceased. Although in a low voice, you could still hear commentaries. But we, his friends, in the senior year, squeezed into his grief without crossing the line. I'm here for anything. I'm so sorry. My condolences. Come on, let's go out for lunch afterwards. And the usual things you would say to a grieving friend. I've never been good at this stuff, so in English class, I put my arm around him and said a very simple, "Yo, I heard. I'm sorry." And he, for the first time, looked at me straight in the eye and thanked me. He was a different person. There was a darkness in his eyes that gave me goosebumps. He was sad, deeply. But it wasn't just sadness, it was almost despair. I thought, he's grieving. If this were to happen to me, I don't think I could ever recover. So I understood and respectively left him to grieve. The next day, Mark is absent again. I keep thinking, that's normal. I wouldn't be able to make it to school one day. I get it. And meanwhile, completely unrelated, a man starts hanging around the cafeteria during lunchtime. I ask who he is. And they tell me Miss Lefebvre's husband, fictional name, not just for privacy, but I can't remember what the fuck the counselor's name was. The rumors around the school, meanwhile, continue to swirl, and I get really angry because this time, they're really exaggerated. You have to show respect, and stop even thinking such things, I told my friends. Another week goes by, and the atmosphere at the school has literally turned to ice. From the speakers, the principal's voice calls all the seniors to the gym for a communication. We go there, and next to Mr. Baghdad, again, same name problem, is Miss L's husband. This time, however, I hear his voice for the first time, and he tells us what we already knew. Mark killed his mother by choking her. Although the idea had already formed in my mind, I felt the blood freeze in my veins. I didn't get the creeps simply because of the fact that an acquaintance of mine had the courage to kill his mother. I come from a fairly violent country. I have acquaintances in jail and others who, although free, have done some bad things, but never something like this. But because of the dynamics of things, Mr. L, now I'm just assuming here that his wife took his last name, began to tell us, since he wasn't simply just a guest there, he was a town detective and was literally conducting investigations at the school, that things happened one morning. Mark asked his mother for the car keys to get to school, which she needed though, and after she refused, he jumped on her and strangled her. Then he came to school and fucking sat next to me, gave me English homework, as if that was the main problem of the day, came home and called the police. The school also provided a psychologist, but no one consulted him. But in retrospect, I think a chat with him wouldn't have hurt. I was literally in an episode of 13 Reasons Why, 5 years before it aired. In my country, dealing and fighting happens quite often, so I thought I had seen enough. Obviously, I was wrong, and every now and then, I still think about Mark's deeply empty eyes staring back at me. Keep in mind that I'm European. I guess for some unfortunate of you, this is nothing new, or you've had far worse happen to you in high school. But this all happened within a month of moving into a world totally new to me. So yes, this is the creepiest encounter of my life. This creepy encounter was kind of prolonged and got especially creepy at the end. I was a fairly awkward and introverted teenage girl, so my high school guidance counselor encouraged me to take a theater elective in 10th grade to help me come out of my shell. The class was terrible and miserable, and I hated every second of it, but it did more than just take me out of my comfort zone. It introduced me to a really weird guy. I wouldn't say that I really thought that this guy was a creep from the beginning. He had a fairly obvious crush on me, but he wasn't too weird about it. He wrote me the occasional note and asked me to one school dance. I told him no, and he took the rejection fairly well. He still tried to talk to me all the time, but he eventually started dating someone else, and then left me alone. I assumed that the relationship lasted through 11th grade, as I only saw him occasionally, and he never tried to talk to me. I went to the 12th grade homecoming dance with a group of my girlfriends, and we actually spent a good portion of the night dancing and really enjoying ourselves. At one point, we sat down to rest and have a snack, and the guy from 11th grade theater class came over and sat at our table. He seemed upset and actually started crying, so I asked if he was okay. He told me that his girlfriend had just dumped him, and I responded that it was pretty shitty of her to do at a school dance. I guess he took this as me making a move on him, because he immediately grabbed my arm, yanked me from the table, and pulled me into a fairly secluded corner. He was immediately in my personal space, asking me if I would be his new date. I tried to push him away, but he had a pretty firm grip on me, and then he tried to go in for a kiss. I was in total shock as this happened, and kind of froze. Luckily, one of my friends swooped in and told him that I was her date, so he should back off. He spent the rest of the evening dancing fairly close to us, but he luckily didn't say anything. Flash forward to the rest of 12th grade. I didn't have classes with him, but his locker was fairly close to mine, so I unfortunately saw him a lot. He stared at me a lot, but he didn't say much to me until right before graduation, where he asked to sign my yearbook. I was afraid that he would write something weird in it, so I told him no, but I did wish him good luck in life. He responded that I was what he would miss most about high school. I kind of forgot that he existed until about 3.5 years later. I was in college, and I got a message from someone asking me if I knew him and when we had last spoken. Apparently she was his girlfriend. I told her that we had gone to high school together and hadn't spoken since before we graduated. She asked why he talked about me all the time, and I told her that I had honestly no idea because we weren't even friends on social media. Then she asked me why she found my first and last name in his wallet. I was incredibly confused by this, and I asked her what she meant, and she told me that she was going through his wallet and had found my first and last name on a piece of paper just sitting in his wallet. She said he denied knowing who I was, and said that I must have stuck my name in his wallet as a joke when we were hanging out, which obviously never happened. I think she was expecting me to confess that he was cheating with me or something, but all it did was freak me the fuck out. I found him on social media and blocked him, then blocked her too for good measure. Luckily, I haven't heard from him since, and this was about 11-ish years ago, but I have to wonder why he had my name in his wallet. As a side note, he was on the local news just a week or so later because his dad had met someone online and then locked her in the basement for a weekend. He was defending his dad and calling the woman a liar. I'm pretty sure that his dad wound up going to prison for kidnapping and criminal confinement, so the apple didn't fall too far from the creep tree. Wow, do I have a crazy story for you guys? Sorry if it's a little long. This experience has caused me a lot of anxiety, and it actually feels therapeutic typing this out. During my freshman year of college in New Hampshire, a girl in my dorm hall accidentally caused a small dorm room fire by leaving popcorn in too long at like 3 a.m. We all had to evacuate, and the fire trucks came, and the RAs made a pretty big stink about it. The girl who lit the fire was the subject of many yik-yak jokes, and I felt bad for her because she really wasn't attractive. And plus, causing microwave fires seemed like a pretty innocent mistake for such harsh comments. A couple of days after the incident, I saw her in the resident hall and made casual small talk by asking her how things were poppin' and kind of just checking up on her because I felt bad. She laughed, and that was kind of it. A conversation of about 2 minutes. Fast forward a week later, and I hear a knock at my dorm door, and the same girl, who I'm now going to refer to as Popcorn, comes literally running into my room with no hesitation. I didn't even tell her my room number, and at the time, I just figured she saw me go in there once, because she didn't even know my name at this point. It takes me a second to realize that she's in full-blown tears. There is now a stranger on my bed in tears, and I'm just like, So I counsel her like the bleeding heart I am, and I ask what's wrong. She tells me that the black dining hall cook SA'd her, and the college wouldn't fire him, and that she was suffering emotionally because of it. Being a victim of assault myself, I really sympathized with her situation, and gave her my phone number in case she needed help walking to the dining hall with a safety net and whatnot. I don't take SA lightly. The night after our conversation in my room, I got a call from her to walk her to the dining hall because the cook that assaulted her was working that day. I walked her down to get food, and she just lit up like a glow stick, and a whole new person emerged. It didn't matter that her assaultant was in the room. She was talking my ear off about Pretty Little Liars, One Direction, etc. A lot of things I just don't really care about. But then again, she had no one to talk to, and the situation was complicated. I just listened and nodded my head. Over the course of about 2 weeks, give or take, I had walked her down to the dining hall about maybe 4 or 5 times. She may have been a victim of assault, but she was also a very annoying and unappealing person. For God's sake, she actually talked about herself in the third person. Her story about the assaults became inconsistent, and there was always new major developments about what happened, and the story was changed to something much more drastic and severe. It went from assault to full-on gang rape as her story developed. That made me immediately uncomfortable and unsettled. I didn't want to walk her down or interact with her anymore. The week of Thanksgiving, I went back home to visit my family while Popcorn stayed on campus. During that week, I had 60 missed phone calls from Popcorn. One day, I even had 20+ calls in the span of a couple hours. No normal person does that. Red flags definitely were raising if they hadn't been already. When I got back to campus, there was a knock on my door, and sure enough, it was Popcorn crying again. She tells me that because I wasn't on campus to protect her, she was R-worded by a Muslim guy while walking to Panera Bread, and the Filipino RA groped and slapped her boobs. If red flags were being raised, then this was full-on sirens. I'm no R-word apologist by any means, but the rape-to-ratio rate was exponentially high, especially since these 3 assaults happened within a month's time frame, all by people of color, seemingly at random. She was making these stories up to elicit some sick form of sympathy, and as an actual victim of assault, I was beyond offended. I told her I had to leave for class, and ran the fuck off to my friend to ask for advice. It got really crazy, really fast. I warned the RA officers about her, and they told me they would talk to her. During class, I was up to 100+ missed calls, and a series of individual messages that just said, "Hi." I was done with this shit. I wanted nothing to do with her. I blocked her number and went back to my dorm. That week after classes, I just went straight to my dorm. I didn't want to see her. One day, I had to go to the bathroom, so I walked into the stall to do my business. I'm just casually in there peeing, with my pants around my ankles, when Popcorn literally fucking crawls on the bathroom floor and dips her head underneath the stall door and says, "Ha! I knew you would eventually come out." I'm freaked the fuck out, and in near tears. I tell her I'm wicked busy, I don't have time for her, and that I was upset that she invaded my privacy. It took a lot of courage to do, because I struggle deeply with confrontation. She tells me all about how she is thinking of dying, because her mom died when she was young. Some manipulative shit that I was just not in the mood for. I leave her in the bathroom and go to my room and lock the door. I watched some YouTube, and I took a nap when I was rudely awakened by not knocking, but pounding on my door. I did not answer. The pounding just continued and got louder. "Open this door, or I will kill you." And she just waited and waited outside my dorm, singing songs into the other door cracks for an hour. I was so scared, I just cried and called my dad to pick me up from school. I didn't have many friends that lived on campus, since it was a small college and a lot of people commuted, and this whole situation just made me feel so isolated. My mental health was deteriorating rapidly. The RAs had been informed of the threats made at my door by other students observing what happened, and she was giving a warning, but that was all. One night, I had my boyfriend, who lived 3 hours away at the time, come to spend the night at the college. We had been watching a movie, and now we were napping on my bed when we hear the door open. Like an idiot, I had completely spaced and forgot to lock the door. Popcorn comes running in and jumped on top of us and says in a baby voice, "Popcorn wants cuddles." I was beyond creeped out and was basically screaming, "What the fuck?" My boyfriend, being the no-nonsense confrontational person he is, told her to get the absolute fuck out of my room. She told him that she would, and I quote, "just go and die like her mother did when she was 3 and inject cancer into herself." My boyfriend smiled and said, "Good," and then pushed her out of the room and slammed the door, giving 0 fucks. I swear he almost slammed her fingers shut. I love him. We reported her to the campus police in the morning, and still nothing major came of it. That was until there was another popcorn fire in her dorm, not too far after, and she got kicked out. I wish that's where the story ends with her, but unfortunately, no. After she left the dorms, my resident life became a lot easier. I made a lot of new normal friends, and I was feeling a lot less anxious. One day, a girl in one of my classes invited me to go to the mall with her to go get her nails done. Now, this nail salon had clear glass, so you could see the rest of the outside mall when you were getting your nails done. I'm all relaxed, when all of a sudden, I see Popcorn's fucking face pressed up against the glass of this nail salon, and she is with a morbidly obese neckbeard. I'm getting my nails done, and she is literally staring at me through the window for a good 10 minutes with this man. To say that I was unnerved was an understatement. I told my friend what was going on, and we booked it out of there, and they tried hard to follow. In retrospect, that's when I should have called the real police. After the mall, I had a bunch of random friend requests from profiles with a small Yorkie dog as the profile pic and several message requests. I opened them, and they were from Popcorn asking me to be her bridesmaids at a Pizza Hut wedding that her and her fiancé were having in 2 years. You can't even make this shit up. There was another message about how she was so upset that I didn't acknowledge her at the mall, and she had waited so long to introduce me to her doting fiancé that she was so upset with me that she wanted to wring my neck. Of course, I blocked all those profiles, and things were pretty silent. I've been living with my boyfriend and going to school in Rhode Island for 2 years currently. I'm loving school, and I have an excellent group of friends. About 5 months ago, I had gone home from work and had 3 missed calls from a random New Hampshire number. Thinking it was one of my family members, I called back, and nope, it was Popcorn on the other end. I imminently hung up. There was also a voicemail left that was just a person breathing into the phone and telling me that I was expected at a wedding. I cried, and I called the police urgently about the number. I didn't know what happened, or if anything did come of it, but I haven't been bothered since then. I'm a very kind person, and people often take advantage of my openness. It really is a fatal flaw that I'm working really hard on. It is unfortunate that there are so many unhinged and lonely people, but we really shouldn't make it our burden to help them. Sometimes being nice can actually cause a lot of mental strain. To Popcorn, let's not meet again.